So a very important organ for coordination and balance is the cerebellum, and that is distinctively present and located almost inferior to the cerebral hemispheres out there. The exact location is the posterior cranial fossa. So again, theoretically, we divide the cranial fossa into the interior, the middle, and the posterior cranial fossa. And important structures, they're residing out here. The cerebellum, consistently, it is present in the posterior cranial fossa, as you can even review over here. That it is almost inferiorly located to the two cerebral hemispheres. It is posteriorly and inferiorly located, and it's almost posteriorly located to the brainstem. So this is the exact location of the cerebellum. And as you can even overview, when we have a superior overview and one side of the vault is removed, we can see the different structures that is present superiorly and the structures that are present inferiorly out there, different lobes that are present in different views when we are having the different three-dimensional views of the posterior cranial fossa. But the exact location that you have to remember is the posterior cranial fossa in the cranial base, and this is again emphasizing on this particular fact. Now, obviously, there are different important structures that are present in the cerebellum, and there are different, for the purpose of study, rather than the hemispheres, we are using the words lobes for the cerebellum. So we have different lobes, and these lobes are formed due to the different fissures that are present in the cerebral hemisphere. So as you can see, as you can overview right here, and it's a very good view and gives you an idea regarding how it is present. And again, the functionality is not going to be dependent upon that, but the trauma, for instance, if you're looking at a patient of trauma, it's very, again, interesting to just see how vulnerable it is that this part of the brain can be involved in a particular trauma that can occur at the base of the skull. So again, if we look, this is a flattened overview. So it's just a diagrammatical representation. You just went through the fact that it is present out there. It is present in the folds in the posterior cranial fossa. But when we flatten the structure like this, we can see that we have a posterior lobe. This is the whole posterior lobe that is present. This is the major portion of the cerebellum. Then this portion is the anterior lobe. And then we have the flocculonodular lobe, which is this portion, which is present inferiorly actually. It is not like this. It is a flattened view of the cerebellum that is being shown over here. Just to give you the exact knowledge regarding the lobes that are present. Now, the central portion is the vermis, and it is again compromising of very important structures, very important nuclei that are present out there. And we'll be discussing them in detail regarding what is the function of these different nuclei that are present in the vermis, and they're responsible for performing the different functions accordingly. These lobes are formed due to the fissures that are present out here. As you can see, this is the primary fissure, and is basically forming, there is basically a distinction between the anterior and the posterior lobe. So this primary fissure is again very important. Then we have an intermediate zone. This is basically an intermediate zone which is present between the vermis and the lateral portions of the anterior lobe. These are the lateral hemispheres. So this is the vermis, this is the median portion, then we have an intermediate zone, and finally we have the lateral portions of the lobes as well present over here. Then we have the posterolateral fissures that are present out there. This is the almost the posterolateral fissures that are present, and that is basically dividing the posterior lobe from the flocculonodular lobe. The function of the cerebellum is to perform the different coordinated movements, as you can even evaluate over here. This lady is able to perform, to flex, to extend the upper and the lower limbs at the same time and maintain the posture of the individual in a particular way, just because the cerebellum is working in a particular way. in a normal in individuals whose cerebellar functions are normal, they can perform all of these functions. And that is why when we want to point out that an individual is suffering from any sort of damage to the cerebellar pathways or the cerebellar peduncles out there, we'd be asking him to perform the integrated movements. For instance, we have the finger nose test or the other coordinated movements. Even the gait, the normal gait is affected whenever there is some sort of a pathology that is referring to the particular cerebellar pathways. So all of these coordinated movements basically are a part of the cerebellum or the cerebral hemispheres.